Hello, welcome to Claret Blue. My name is Dan Rolinson. I'm joined here at Hockey Social Club with John Townley and James Rushton for our big Aston Villa season preview. We do these every year where we make our predictions for the year and make ourselves look silly. I've gone back to last year's predictions. Obviously, James, you weren't on that show, but I've got what we said for some of them, and they are...
Don't say it.
They're rogue, let's just say.
Maybe if you go back 2 years to like my one.
Yeah, I mean,
that'd be bad.
I
That'd be worse.
I wonder what we'd be saying back then. I know, yeah. Obviously, we're going to talk about this season upcoming, the Europa, the Conference League. We're going to have a look, not at the whole season, but August games in particular, and kind of for who's going to be Villa's top scorer, and how far will they go in the cup competitions, and those kind of things. Before we get into all that, how excited are you, John, for the new season? It starts this weekend.
Yeah, it's come around really quickly. I think pre-season's gone very fast.
Yeah.
It's obviously been, 3 or 4 weeks? But yeah, really quick. And really excited for the new season. It's probably the most optimistic I've been for a new campaign in like living memory, like genuinely. Like I think that's probably the same for quite a lot of people, at least for a few decades now. The potential that Villa has under this manager and with the squad that they're building seems almost limitless at this point, obviously apart from winning the league. But you go into every game next season thinking we could do a job there, apart from maybe at Man City. But you can compete with everyone, and that's quite some position to be in. We're in Europe for the first time in 13 years. If we get through the playoff round, then we actually have a European push as well, which we haven't had in even more years. So yeah, really excited.
We were saying on our show earlier in the week, James, that it's very Villa to be back in Europe with potentially a trip to Scotland. There's something quite funny about that.
You know what? The draw was really, really funny because I thought we was going to sit there for hours, and then that mechanism.
Yeah, like
when it just went, mate,
yeah.
Team 4 play Team A, you're like, spot on, that's brilliant.
When I played like intro music, I was like, this is like the coolest thing ever to be back in this environment. And it was like, let's explain the technical procedures. Oh, God, let's just get on with it, man. But no, nice to be back in that conversation of Europe, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, technically, Scotland is still Europe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's within the same union of countries as us. But you could... there was an argument. I don't know if Haverfordwest are in the same progression as us, but there's an argument you could have played there, or the New Saints, or Shamrock Rovers. It's one of those things, but it's pretty cool. I mean, the chance to play Hibernian in a real competition is
not just a friendly.
Is a reward, because you would not get that opportunity usually. And I know people can disrespect the calibre of teams in certain competitions, but you're playing a team from another country in an actual competition, and that's something you earn, and we have done.
Yeah, there's something about this season that it just feels different. Like the beginning of it kind of being this excited for a season. I'm not quite sure how to describe it, but it feels like we know that Villa are a big club, but we're now acting as a big club would, and we've got a proper manager in place, and kind of his support staff around him feels like something a top side has. And this pre-season optimism is usually misplaced, isn't it, where we kind of go, oh yeah, Villa are going to win the FA Cup, or they're going to finish in the top 6, almost as a bit of we're Villa fans, we kind of have to say that. If we're saying those things later on in this show, we're saying it because we believe it this time, not just because it's like this false hope of, Villa might be okay. Do you feel the same way, John?
Yeah, to be honest, in the last few years, having predicted things before the start of the season, I think you need to be a bit more conservative to how you look at it. And as I've said, Villa can compete with anyone, and the potential is almost limitless. But at the same time, you have to kind of play down those expectations, because yes, Villa could compete for the Champions League, and yes, they could win the Conference League, and yeah, they could maybe get to a final of a domestic competition as well. But we're also a club who hasn't won anything for 28 years from next year.
Yeah.
Everything isn't going to happen in one season, so I'm going to kind of just sit back with it as well, and we'll go on to it later. But my expectations of next season aren't as maybe high as what other people's are, and that's fine, because I think there'll still be success in there somewhere. It's just, it might not be in every competition. How next season looks for me is extremely positive because of that pre-season. As you said, everything that happened last season was continued into the pre-season. Yeah, we're unbeaten, but I don't really think that matters. I think it's more that Emery has tried new things. The players are again adapting. We've added 3 top players. It's a world apart from where it was this time last year, and I think we were seeing it because Gerrard wasn't really doing anything different, and Bournemouth happened, and then I think we all know the writing was on the wall from then. But this feels different. It feels like we're going into another chapter of Emery, I suppose you could call it, which is exciting, and there's hopefully a lot more chapters after this as well.
Is that how you feel about it, James? Are you a little bit more conservative, or are we winning the lot?
No, I think it's a good season because you're going to be so much possibilities and there's so many different ways to judge that success. I mean, before we've just went, did we get more points than last year, or did we finish in a higher position? Where we could finish lower, win something, or go far in 2 competitions.
Yeah,
and that's a similar level of progress because if you win something, it potentially gets you further than any league position we could aim for would get us.
We could have a good season in the Premier League, but because the league is possibly stronger, we finish below 7th with more points, but win an FA Cup and get into Europa League.
It's a really good point what James has made there. Like, we have lots of possibilities for success. So, as you said, we don't have to finish 5th for it to be a good season. That's what makes it even more exciting because we have so many possibilities.
So many avenues into success for the year after. I think when we did this last year, Matt said, how do you get into Europe? And we said, well, 7th place. And he said, well, we'll finish 8th then. But if we win an FA Cup, that gets you into Europe. Well, you've got those competitions that get you into Europe, and obviously winning the Conference League would get you into the Europe this season after as well. So we'll get on to what is success later down this show, but being in Europe for the following season, I think would be success for me. Even if this season wasn't as big as we all hope it is, if we're still in some kind of European competition for 24, 25, 23, 24 was successful, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if you got like more points but somehow finished below and then fell at the semi-final or final, in some ways that's not a progress. That is like a progress, but it's like, do you need that definitive end result
intangible
of Europe to consider it a success? And maybe you do, maybe you don't. It depends on how it finishes.
Yeah, of course. We're going to talk about squad depth a little bit today. It feels like Villa are in the best place they've been in that I can remember, really. Obviously, at the age that we are, we go back to the O'Neill days as being the last good times for Villa, really. Obviously, competing in Europe 12, 13 years ago. But back then, we had a first 11, didn't we, James? And that was basically, you'd have a couple of subs who might be in and around it. But after that, O'Neill had a core of 12 or 13 players he would use. For Villa, I said in the last show podcast that we did when we made 7 subs at half-time that all the players that came on and came off could be first-team starters because Villa's squad depth has improved so much. That's a great position to be in, isn't it, James?
Yeah, I think there's still questions. You go on Twitter and there's still, dead club if we don't buy a striker type of discussion. And I mean, I've seen us play Josh Alama and Leandro Bacuna up front. But the discussion is you're playing Diaby, Bailey, Archer, perhaps even Philogene, and of course Ollie Watkins. And I feel like I know we played wingers in that position before, but the quality I think is there, the deeper quality, the potential is there for if you unfortunately grab an injury to the main guy. I feel that the squad is built as a unit rather than relying on having that marquee signing.
Yeah, you can look at Ollie Watkins and say, well, if he gets injured, then where are your goals coming from? But you can do that for almost every club that isn't Man City, and even their depth isn't amazing. Like, if Martinez gets injured, then you don't have your top goalkeeper. If John McGinn gets injured, well, then you don't have your captain. Like, you can go across the squad and you can always do that. And, everyone was clamouring for Cameron Archer to be in the squad, and then you kind of ignore him because he didn't score 5 goals in pre-season. So I think you've got to look at the whole team as a whole and say it's one of the best squads in the league outside of your obvious Liverpool, Man United, those guys. What James said there as well about the depth in those forward positions, you've got players behind that, like Jacob Ramsey wasn't even in pre-season. Alex Moreno obviously not in pre-season as well. So the depth that we're playing with, it's I think it's a problem for opposition teams because we have so many tools to overcome different problems, and that's exactly what Emery wants. Not one game is going to be the same next season for Villa, and different teams are going to test us in different ways. We won't have just one way of playing, and we'll have a lot of different players to play different ways, and that's key to make a success of what promises to be a really exciting season. Yeah,
at some point we're going to do a kind of tactical video of Villa's squad depth, analysing how many different players can play at different positions, because that's a key thing for us, that it isn't just a case of, if Douglas Luiz is injured, we have to play a certain midfielder in that position and keep that shape. We could totally change the system and play something different, and that's a good thing to have in your arsenal. We'll talk a little bit about Cameron Archer in a bit, I think, and we're also going to talk about the rest of the Premier League at the end of the show, like top 3, top 6, bottom 3, that kind of thing. If I quickly kind of scan through the sides in the Premier League and think who's got a top 6 squad, I don't think there are 6 traditional sides that have a top 6 squad in terms of like the big 6. I don't think Chelsea and Tottenham have a top 6 squad just yet. there's potential there for it to be the case. And obviously they've got new managers and how that works. That could take a year or two to kind of fulfil that potential.
They don't have European football though.
There is that, yeah, absolutely, of course.
They don't need it.
But I think if you just look at our squad on paper, I'd say our squad is top 6 ready.
I agree, and that's because as well Emery has improved a lot of those players, and how they work in his system works very well. Would Chelsea come after some of our players to fill positions in their team? Possibly not, or other clubs in the top 6, but it works for Villa, and that's the key point. When West Ham were going for top 6, top 7, and Leicester were doing it, Wolves as well previously, those teams, those were top 6, top 7 squads at that moment because they fitted for what Nuno wanted and what Moyes wanted and Brendan Rodgers. Villa's thing is they want to do what they did and get in there, and as they have, but then push on instead of falling back into a relegation fight, which is what all of those clubs have done. So that's the key thing for Villa now. It's pushing on, staying there and going again, adding to the squad as we have, but making sure those players remain at that level, which I think they will because Villa have recruited well. They've recruited, that recruitment drive we had when we bought 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds, Ezri Konsa, Louise, Watkins, Matty Cash, all those players. That's now served us well for here because instead of having 31-year-olds like what West Ham had or Wolves or those teams, we're now fit to go again. And those players, I think, can go to another level under Emery as they have already.
We talk about top 6 ready. In the next few years, the way it's balanced out is back in the day, you had the top 6 clubs with a really strong second string, but that second string seems to be the players who are performing at clubs like Aston Villa. So maybe in the future we're talking about not a top 6 but a top 10, and that's a really heated battle between not just your big 6 but another set of clubs who will play well but have nothing to hold up at the end of the season. So the competition's only going to get stronger, especially with Chelsea and Tottenham circling back with good managers and maybe a hunger that wasn't there last season.
That's how Villa view it at the moment. Instead of the big 6, they view it as I think it's the Great 8 is what there was kind of muted as, which is good.
So that's Quentin Tarantino.
Villa, as long as they do their thing, as long as we get enough points in the season, we'll be in the top 6. So
that's what we said at the back of the last season.
Bothered about what anyone else does.
Yeah, if
it's
we do
our
our
season.
job.
Destiny's in our own hands. From the start of the season, everyone's on 0. Let's see where it takes us. Last season, we gave everyone a 13-game head start, didn't we? So
I was listening to another podcast, and they were talking about certain starters amongst different sides. If we do that for Villa and apply the same logic, how many players do you think are guaranteed to be playing most games?
The 11 will change throughout the season.
Of course, yeah.
But I suppose we're putting it as if we play a cup final tomorrow. I guess. Yeah. Martinez, obviously. For me, I think Tyrone Mings, Pau Torres both have to play. And I was very reluctant before to say that would be the case until I saw that we were doing 3 at the back.
Yeah.
So Pau Torres off the left, Tyrone in the middle. I think they have to play together. And I think Ezri Konsa is a shoe-in on that right side as well. Alex Moreno has to play. So I've already named you back 5. Kamara has to play for me.
Yeah.
Douglas Luiz, I think, is probably our best player, one off. So I think he probably has to play, even though Tielemans is doing great. And then Watkins has to play. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 8.
You said John McGinn
John
as well.
McGinn has to play.
No.
So that's
all done.
That's 9.
It's almost the 11.
I think that's almost the 11.
You got Watkins and Martinez on top of that.
So I think there's maybe one position in my team. Diaby has to play. I think I've got 11. Sorry about that. That's kind of defeat the whole objective.
I thought this was going to be like a little niche section where we go, there's only about 4 players you have to say. You've given me 11.
I don't think I'm particularly because would you play? I just think we have really good depth. I think the only...
That's the point, isn't it?
But I still think the 11 is quite, in my opinion, I think the 11 is almost still not set.
Yeah, I mean, every 3 games when Diego Carlos comes in, or Tielemans for Kamara, or Philogene for perhaps Diaby. We haven't even mentioned our Emi Buendia there, who can come in.
Yeah. There's a lot there.
Yeah, so, I mean, the average is that squad is going to be fairly strong.
Yes, that's the point, because we're going to get injuries. Thursday, Sundays is going to be horrible. So Buendia can come in, Tielemans can come in, or Luiz can come in for Tielemans. There's so many ways to take it, but I just think for the starting 11 right now, I do still have a pretty much set 11.
The spine is strong.
Let's talk about the new signings a little bit then. Pau Torres, Yuri Tielemans and Moussa Diaby. Just give me, I know we've talked a lot, so I'll come to you, James, instead. How do you kind of assess that transfer business? Do you think if the window closed tomorrow, would you be happy with that, or do we need more?
Yeah, I think I'd be fine, because I'm guilty of us buying a lot of players and me going, that's brilliant. And it always is on paper, but
it's exciting, isn't it?
You know, you look at 1920, 15, 16, where some brilliant moves were made on paper and they potentially didn't work out, but sometimes it's the lesser stated transfer windows that, you know, we've built that spine now, and that spine includes, what, 2 new players? Yes, 2, yeah.
Spine.
Yeah, it's really, and that's the strongest thing. You've added 2 players who will start to a team that really did well. Last season. I did watch the TIFO analysis, and that did bring up a few good points. That Emery,
is that the one that was titled something like Villa signings might not be as good as we think, or something?
Yeah,
like that?
And you know, we all know about the headline game.
We all know about
the headline game, but the points made were really valid, and you could only make them points without seeing them, you know, with the evidence you have. But after seeing, you know, I think the Brentford game in the summer series was the one where I thought, this is actually nailed on, no fears. And there are some valid things, you know, 2 left-footed centre-backs, and Emery, I don't know what the context was, but he didn't really use a back 3 unless he had to, or he was forced in that position. I don't want to dig into that, because I didn't watch Emery and his last clubs. But to see them progress and play the way they did against, but I know it's pre-season, I know it's summer series in America, whatever, it was still valid to see those talking points kind of get sorted, done. Premier League season, you know, it'll be different. There's still probably some concerns, but I'm going to really enjoy seeing how we play with these new players. I think Diaby really excited me, but there's a lot of money to that. But Torres came in at a position that I didn't really think needed strengthening at all. But thus, I have been proven wrong instantly.
I think, again, like we just said, it's only pre-season. The jury is slightly still out for me on Torres at the moment. No, I'm not saying he's a bad player. I see that smirk. I'm not saying he's a bad player or a bad signing. It's just that because it changes the way we play at the moment, that he's kind of playing this left-back role. I don't think that quite suits him yet.
I can't see that sticking, because Alex Moreno is...
Exactly, yeah. So then how do you then get the rest of the players? You know what I mean? We then come back to the point of, did we need him if Konsa and Mings were so good and Carlos comes back? But as we said before, you need that depth, and if you want to push on, you have to keep making good signings.
I think the aerial stats
aerial stats
were a concern. Great. And people said, I'll beat Spain. I was like, they're not great in Spain, mate. We'll see.
Because him and Tyrone Mings are so... I mean, it's just like Mings' aerial duel was like 71% won, and then Torres might be like 50, but then he's so much better with the ball progressing it, and that's Emery says that in every press conference. So
you maybe take that and bring...
You've got like the best of both worlds, but then both left-footed, so how do you combat that? In a back 3, that would probably work, and then it shifts across, as you said, Dan. So I just think Emery's got a plan, and we'll wait and see.
Definitely, I've said loads of times, just trust in Emery, and I believe what he wants to do is the right thing, but having just watched a couple of those games, Diaby to me looks like he will definitely work. Yuri Tielemans definitely offers something. I'm not saying that Torres doesn't, but he can do, but at the moment I think it creates a couple of different problems with, can he play off that left side?
It's hard to look good
Mings,
as a defender as well. I think, you know, Tyrone Mings is the one who gets it in the neck and the vertical slices of anti-highlight reels. But it's hard to look good as a defender.
Social media age. Mings has been outstanding in pre-season as well. When he came on against Lazio, oh my goodness.
He's so good.
They didn't touch the ball and rattled them all because he was being a bit physical. Like, he was so good in pre-season, Mings, like across all the games. But I know we're saying problems, but I think I see it in a positive way as well. Yeah. If when that works and when we get all of that working well, I think that, you know, got one of the best progressive passes as a centre back in Europe. Mings, who's class, Konsa can do his role well. Martinez is one of the best keepers in the world. Like Alex Moreno, there's so much there that's going for us. So it's still really positive. It's just a couple of teething issues that Emery. But that's why we have pre-season. It's why we had 6 games, and it's a long season. There's so many games to play. You can almost spend 5 of the first games if you needed to, just to feel your way into it, really.
And it's a positive that Villa don't have to throw Torres straight in And it's not that Ezri Konsa was terrible, and it's like, Torres has to play for minute 1 and we're not quite sure, whatever.
Yeah,
there's time to kind of blood him in, and the competition is very strong. I don't want to come across as saying that Torres is a bad player or that he won't be important. I think 12 months' time we'll be going, Torres is a very good footballer.
I think the point is nobody here was saying, or nobody has ever said that, it's that it's different for Villa. And if they concede 2 goals because of that, but Torres applies himself in giving us 6, that's 4 more. That's positive.
+4.
Yeah.
And look how it was last season when people were moaning about playing out from the back, and then all of a sudden we finished 7th because that's exactly like one of the big reasons why we played so. Yeah, you will. It'll be fine.
Yeah, of course. Let's look at August then. I said we're not going to go through the entire season, but let's just look at that opening month.
It's a busy month.
It is busy now with the Conference League. So we've got Newcastle away, Everton at home, Hibs or Lucerne, I think is the pronunciation.
How do you actually pronounce Hibs then? You cut that short.
I think it's Hibernian, James. Hibernian or Lucerne away, first of all in the playoff first leg. Then it's Burnley away. Then it's Hibernian or Lucerne at home at Villa Park to end the month. And then it's Liverpool in early September. Let's sideline Europe for a sec and just talk about that Premier League.
How many games is that?
That's 5 in August instead of 3 if we weren't in Europe. So 3 Premier League, Newcastle, Everton, Burnley. How do you rate that start? Is that a good opening, do you think?
I think Newcastle's probably the worst game you could have asked for to start off this. I don't know, Man City away.
Especially away.
Or home.
I think Newcastle at home, I'd fancy us.
Yeah.
Just because of what happened last season as well. Newcastle away, I know it's obviously not a Champions League game, but it's the season they kick off the Champions League for the first time in 20 odd years or whatever. Their fans will be well up for that. It'll be a massive game, like in terms of atmosphere. Yeah. 2 very good sides going at each other, 2 sides that have improved and were very successful last season. You mentioned Man City. I just wonder whether when you play a good side first game, maybe you can get at them because they haven't kind of got ahead of steam yet. Maybe you can catch them on a bad day on the first day of the season.
You know, we played Bournemouth last season and they did really well in the end, actually. Not under the manager who actually beat us. He was bad. We got beat by the worst part of a good team.
Lost 9-0 next week. Yeah.
But, we could say, we'll have Luton on first day. Same thing I don't think will happen under Emery, to be fair. But these things do happen. So does it really... It just matters... I don't know if the order matters too much. I think it's just who he is. Newcastle away, but I think it'll probably be one of the most delightful games of Emery ball you'll ever see. Like, I think it'll be very similar to the match we played against Graham Potter's Chelsea, where it was like, maybe if you just look at the stat sheet, Villa did very badly and nicked a win. But we nicked a win with a plan.
Yeah.
And I feel like against Newcastle, the atmosphere they have, the way they've developed, they have hit the stratosphere over the last 12 months under Eddie Howe. They are a big club, a potential football powerhouse. They have developed probably 10 years worth of football improvement in the last 12 months, squad-wise.
How many years of football development has Emery done in the last 8 months then?
He had to correct a lot of stuff. We were going quite backwards under Gerrard, so I think Newcastle were I think it was, in my mind, easier to improve Newcastle because they were stagnant.
Yeah.
Whereas Villa were like up, down, up, down, up, down. Emery's, that doesn't discount what Emery's done. I think maybe it was 4 years. But I think if you're in the mind of a Newcastle fan, the Steve Bruce to Eddie Howe thing is... from Gerrard to Emery is huge. The Steve Bruce to Eddie Howe thing is mental.
We talked a little bit about Newcastle there. So it's Newcastle, Everton, Burnley. Forget about Europe for a sec. How many points come from that? It's the classic question.
I'd give us a point against Newcastle. I'd snatch your hands off for a point, honestly. I'd want to get out of there as quick as we can with a 0-0, 1-1, whatever it may be. If we win, might be one of the best results we have all season, genuinely. Everton, you have to win. And Burnley away, I don't want to sit here and say that we have to win that because
I think Burnley will be okay this year.
If we draw against Burnley away, then okay, you win most of your home games, get a weekend on the road, and we'll probably finish in about 60 points again. So
yeah,
I'm okay with staying unbeaten in that run as long as we win at least one game, which we have to beat Everton at home. That would be a poor result if we don't beat Everton.
Agreed. So 5 points for you there.
Yeah, I think 5 points. 5 points minimum. If we lose to Newcastle, you want to probably win those 2. but 5 points I think is probably what would be at least be aiming for. I
And
think
you
that's
are
fine.
throwing in those 2 European games in between those
We
Everton
are,
and Burnley as
yeah.
well, and that creates a problem if Villa are playing. I don't think they'll play full strength in both, especially if they win the first leg pretty comfortably, but it is still extra game time and whatnot. So, points, James, from those 3?
I'll give us 6, push for 7. I think, I don't want to big Newcastle up too much on our Aston Villa podcast, but it's a tough team to play, especially it's just the context of it. It's not necessarily how good Newcastle, the context of it.
That's the point.
Makes it very hard. I mean, put Villa in the same circumstance and bring Newcastle to Villa Park. Imagine how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think you two have both bigged up Newcastle, and rightly so, but I will counter that and say I think we'll beat Newcastle on the first day. I think we'll start this. What's that for? I think we'll start the season with a win. I think it's important to get off to a good start.
Massive win if you beat Newcastle
Of course,
away
yeah,
first
but I think
game.
you can
Huge.
catch people cold on the first day. Is my point. And
Like us.
I think exactly.
I think there's a few places where teams don't want to go on the first day. One is Villa Park. One is St James's. No one wants to go to the Etihad at any time of the year. And probably
Not even Man City fans.
Anfield. Very good. Probably Anfield. Probably 5 stadiums or so, and I think we're included in that as well. So
Yeah, of course.
for everything we're saying about St James's Park, and
Yeah.
you could apply the same thing as what James said. We beat them 3-0 at Villa Park. Half of that was probably because of Villa Park as well. Yeah, we played very well, but so yeah, 3 points against Newcastle would be
massive. Yeah, and I just think it's
huge.
important to get off to a good start, and then you beat Burnley at home. You beat Everton at home because we do that every year. In August at least. So 6 from the opening 2. We'll blast through the European games, of course, and then I'd take a point away at Burnley just because it's tricky, isn't it, to go away.
No, but
we're not gonna
it's
win
not.
every
It's
game,
not
are we?
the.
That's
It's
the
not
thing.
the old Burnley though, is
Nah,
it? It's
no.
actually Everton that you've got to be worried.
Yeah, I think people will write off Burnley as being the side they were under Sean Dyche, but that's been
How do you think
very-
Burnley will do this season, just as a quick?
something like 12th maybe.
I can't work out if they'll be 12th or 17th. I think they'll be good, but at the same time, I don't know how their football's going to translate. It's very...
If they have to throw away their
it's
principles a
interesting
little
for
bit,
them.
if they play
I
the
don't
way
think
they
they
will, I
will.
think they'll concede goals and be a bit like.
It'd be exactly like Villa.
Yeah, I was thinking a bit like. Do you remember Blackpool being in the Premier League?
Yeah,
that was madness.
And they were just
actually.
like
yeah.
They seem
very
safe.
weird and
Seems
like
safe in the
yeah.
final 2 weeks. Oh,
Yeah, I'm not saying Burnley will go down, but they'll just play their own way and it'll be fun and fun to watch and
Yeah, fair
whatnot.
play to
But
them.
I think you'll
Shout
see a
out
lot
for
of like
Blackpool.
3-3s and things like that from Burnley.
I think it's mad how company, I know this is a Villa podcast, but whatever. I think it's mad how company can change the whole perception of not the whole perception of a club, but how they play in a championship season and walk it. New players. I think, honestly, the job he'd done there is crazy.
I think
We'll see how it
Burnley-
goes in the Premier League. But
I think Burnley will be closer to the top half than they are to being relegated.
I
Points
think
wise.
that's how I feel about them as well, but I just
Yeah.
don't know how it's going to go.
Okay. Let's talk about Europe then. So we did a show earlier in the week when the cup draw was done, and I was saying, well, we'll beat whoever we play, whoever the 7 sides Villa could have played against. I'm not really bothered. We'll beat them all. And there were YouTube comments, predictably, saying, overconfident, arrogant, complacent. Firstly, is that fair? Or do you agree that we'll kind of walk through these early rounds? Because my point is that we keep saying Villa are one of the favourites for the tournament. So why are we going to be in any trouble in a playoff round? Villa might not play their strongest side in either of those games.
Yeah, I think
It's a two-legged affair. If you lose that, we'll rightly be embarrassed for it because Villa should be blasting their way through that and the group stage and deep into the knockouts at least.
Just imagine the amount of PowerPoints you'd have to sit through if Villa got knocked out. If you're a Villa player and you got knocked out by a...
I'd be rightly embarrassed because it would be a disastrous result to lose one of those games, whether it's Hibs or Lucerne.
I think there is a trickiness to the playoffs rounds because it is cup final mode to get further for clubs that may not expect to progress. So a lot of the cup, not necessarily in Villa's path, the other side of it is there's a big cut off there from being not in Europe to earning the money from a group stage thing. So there's a lot riding on it. Not so clued up on Hibernian's situation or Lucerne's, to be honest, in terms of how much it means to them. But it's a shot to, more so for Hibernian.
They'll be gutted to get Villa because they'll be thinking, well, we're
I
out.
don't know, man. I think they'll see it as a scalp.
Yeah, because that's what I mean.
And
Yeah, but they
that's-
won't achieve it, is my point.
Yeah, it's. I feel confident in Villa progressing. I don't think it'll be easy because I haven't seen Villa do it easy in the past. But this is a new Villa.
Exactly, that's the point. It's a new Villa, and I think we're scarred by I know the Stevenage thing was under Emery only this year. But like, we've been scarred by things like Bradford of years gone by, where Villa get beat by a lower league side. I don't think that happens under Emery now. I know it happened at the start of the year, but it's very different.
Yeah, I can't see us winning 3-0 away and then 5-0 at home. I don't think it's going to be that comfortable. I think we'll probably win both legs and, by a goal or something. I don't know. I just don't think it will be. I think it'll just be comfortable.
We'll get the job done.
Yeah. And that away leg might be a bit hostile at Easter Road if we play against them, because I think Luton are probably possibly better than Hibernian. But I think the home leg for 20 minutes might be, what's good. We might just feel our way into it and then score. And
I'm not expecting Villa to be 4-0 up at half time or anything, but I think Villa will get through this playoff round.
It's not being arrogant at all. Aston Villa are a better team than Hibs and Lucerne.
We'll get through. We're not. I find it hard to see that we'll cruise through, because teams naturally don't.
And but after then, I would say I think it will get tougher for Villa. I mentioned it on the podcast we did, but West Ham's run was pretty, I don't want to say easy, but it was pretty simple. But at the same time, we'll get those games away to Alkmaar or whoever we play or whoever the equivalent is, and it will be tough for 20, 30 minutes, and we've got to dig in, even though we're the better team. But it's going to happen. Those teams in Europe, those teams find a way somehow, and we've got to be that club who steps up and proves ourselves. We're the favourites. It's just say we're the scalp now. It's all well and good saying we're the favourites, which we are, but that does make it a bit harder for us because we're the team everyone wants to beat and knows that they probably have to beat to win it.
There's been a lot of talk about the drop off in the league if we go far in the Conference League, which is a West Ham point, I guess, that they win the tournament but finish 14th in the Premier League. Now, we've said before, I don't think that will happen because West Ham have got other problems and that's why they finished 14th. I don't see that happening for Villa. I think we'll get on to season predictions in a bit, and I know that in our end of season show, I said that Villa will be in the top 4. Starting to wane on that a little bit, I'll be honest. But I think
only a few weeks ago. What's changed?
It's possible. I mean, top 5 could be Champions League, so I think top 5 is doable as our route in. I think if we had no European football, I'd stick with that prediction that Villa could finish in the top 5 or top 4 because it's a pure focus on the league. I know you got the domestic cups, but on the league, there's no distractions, no travel. Because of the Conference League, there will be times where, like you said, we're away at Fiorentina or whatever, and then back playing Arsenal away on the Sunday or whatever, and it'll be a slog and we'll lose a few games and whatnot. But I don't think that the drop-off will be as dramatic as some people, maybe neutrals, will expect it will be.
I mean, it's the context of what the season will turn out like. I think if you're a West Ham fan last season, you probably don't expect that. So as a Villa fan, I'm not expecting it. It's just what will happen in that season to cause such a thing to occur, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't, it's very hard for me to sit here and go, Villa will finish 16th, win the Conference League, win the FA Cup final. But these are the situations where you probably sacrifice maybe that league position. Maybe it's the other side of the Moscow thing.
Yeah, if we're further in.
But I feel like Villa have got a manager, they've got the squad. It's just what happens in that season to cause another thing to happen rather than now. Now I feel really confident of it not happening. If
we look back in 12 months' time and there is a drop-off, but it's because Martinez, Watkins and Douglas Luiz were injured for 6 months, you go, well, that was why. I don't think if everyone's fully fit and raring to go, that won't happen. I just don't think it's just as simple as, well, if Villa get to the final of that thing, they will finish 12th. I don't think that will happen.
I think there will be games next. It's probably obvious to say, but there'll be games next season in the Premier League or in the Cups or whatever that we'll be frustrated by because of the European night a couple of days before. It will happen. We could play, I don't know, random game, Fulham away, and we draw, and we probably could have won it if we didn't, because we had to make a few changes. There'll be that a bit of frustration, and then we'll be thinking, if we won in Europe, we could have finished in 5th. And so the next season, there'll be a lot of different things to sort of fight against and think about. But I think I'll just go back to the point, if we've got so many chances to win a trophy, like I was writing a piece saying, there's every chance Villa actually win something next year because we
got the most opportunities we've ever had.
Yeah,
right?
And we are one of the favourites to win the Conference League, the Carabao Cup, and the FA Cup. If we really want to push for the League Cup, maybe not so because we're in Europe and there's a lot of games, but we could probably win that if we really push for it and got a decent draw. Like last season and in the FA Cup and the League Cup, the amount of teams that were in the latter stages of both of those cups, there weren't many.
Yeah, big teams, you mean?
Yeah, it's like Man United, Brighton. City were only in one of the latter rounds.
Sheffield United go far?
Sheffield United went far. Blackburn went far. Fulham went far. So many teams that we need
that 19-20 draw of like Liverpool, but they're not asked about it.
We played
Wolves, who are just not.
We played Wolves at home, and then we're at Wembley like the week later. Obviously played Leicester, but those draws, I don't know how to explain it. But last season, I feel was a real opportunity for us. Like Sheffield United, Wednesday, beat Newcastle, and everything fell in our lap a little bit until we lost to Stevenage. But everything after that, I mean, was if we got through, I think we really would have gone far. And under Emery, in one-off games, I back us to beat anyone pretty much. So there's that as well next season. I don't think in domestic cups we'll go on to it, but I don't think we'll concentrate on them too much. But at the same time, our squad is so good, you can't really play a weaker team.
So we're going to end the show with the section that we always do, where we do our predictions. Now, I've added a couple of different ones to usual, but we've got the classics: top goal scorer, player of the year, where Villa are going to finish, etc. Now, I've got these in front of me that I've written down, so I've got mine. I won't change them, though I might look at them. So we'll go through them in order, each one of us, and we've also got a new section this year called the Big Prediction, where we're going to physically write down something, seal it in an envelope, and come back to it at the end of the year. So maybe something you're a little apprehensive to say today and have to justify in August, but if it comes off, you can pull it out in May and go, told you. So, top scorer then. John, I'll start with you first, because I know who yours is going to be, because we've already talked about it. Ollie Watkins?
Yeah.
Why?
Obviously why? Yeah, I think that's it. It's quite obvious, I suppose. Not much thought behind it. He's the main guy. I think he'll get 20 goals this season. So
in the Premier League?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Okay. Is that then you're going with 20 for Watkins?
I think he can break 20. As in, from what he did last season and next season, in pre-season as well, just watching him closely, he looks hungry, determined to score after he missed that penalty against Lazio. You could tell how frustrated he was, and when he scored his goal, he could have squared it and stuff, and he just thought, no, I'm going to put my head down. I know where the goal is, and I'll shoot. And he's hungry for goals, and not in a selfish way, but he has to have that sort of. Well, I suppose he needs to be a bit selfish, and I think next season he'll have opportunities, and I think he'll get 20 if he stays fit.
Same for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to put in a different answer from my perspective. He's a good striker and a good Premier League striker, if not becoming a really good Premier League striker. Yeah. I didn't want to say great because I think great is overused.
Okay.
Maybe Alan Shearer and Thierry Henry's probably not there. Yeah. But he's good. He's very good, and he's ours. And he's the one man who is probably the first name on the team sheet. He's the one man always in a position to finish a move. He's the one man knows where the goal is. He's going to be on the end of a lot of good moves this season, and he's going to put them away.
He's developed rapidly under Emery's team as well. The stuff that he works with at Bodymore, we need to sort that contract situation out, because I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of top clubs are sniffing around.
Yeah.
I think, as James says, he's becoming a top player.
How many goals in the league?
I don't know. I want to back John and say 20, but I think he'll be used a lot in the Conference League.
I was going to ask about that. Do you think he will start every game in the Conference League?
Not every game, but I think important ones.
In the latter stage, like in the groups?
In the groups, if we need a win, Watkins is playing. In the playoffs, he's probably playing one of the legs, which might affect him in August in the league. I don't know, but he's definitely playing in the Conference League, and I think that takes away from his potential in the Premier League. Rightly so, I think. Yeah,
I'm intrigued to see how we rotate in the Conference League, certainly in those early stages. I think possibly the first leg, I don't know. In one of those legs, I think we'll play a strong side, because it'll be like, well, we either need to win in the second leg, or we go in the first leg strong because we think if we win this 5-0, we can rest next week, for example. In the group stage, it's a little bit different, because obviously you play 6 games, and some of those we can definitely rotate.
Yeah, what you can do in the group stage, like what West Ham did, you just go out and win your first.
Win the first 3, rotate for the second 3.
You've won the group, and then you've got, you don't have to play the last ones.
Exactly, yeah. I have gone different. Partly because it's a podcast, I want to do something different and give a different talking point. One, because I also think that Moussa Diaby will be very exciting this season. Whether he is actually top goal scorer or not is obviously a different matter, and maybe some of that will depend on if Watkins is playing the Conference League. If he's having a bit of a burden there, maybe Diaby picks up the slack in the league, possibly. But I just wanted to give a different answer, and I think he will score goals. I think playing that second striker role, there'll be times where he plays off the right-hand side or whatever, but predominantly it's going to be him and Watkins as it stands, unless we sign anyone else, which I'm not sure we will. So I've got Diaby with 17 as our top scorer.
17 goals?
I think so. I think his pace is just so dangerous, and his finishing is lethal. And like Watkins, he'll be on the end of moves as well, and he will finish them. So I could see him scoring a couple of braces here and there, and that kind of notching his tally up a little bit. So just for the sake of a different answer, DRB with 17 for me. Top assists. Start with you, James.
I'd go Alex Moreno.
Good shout. I went with Luca Dean last season.
Oh,
but for the same kind of thing.
Last week, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
What?
But for the same kind of thing, like we'll play a lot down the flanks kind of thing, and the left back will get assists. Is what I was thinking.
And Luca Dean's a smart, as is Moreno, as is whomever you're going to come up with. I'm sure there's well thought out, but Moreno's in a great position to lead. I mean, I don't want to say Torres, but I think Torres is going to pop up a few, but it's going to be, you know, the main guys you're looking at, Luiz, McGinn, Diaby or Watkins even.
Yeah, that's what I was toying with one of the strikers because they'll blink up together well.
Marino's second season for Marino.
Shout for a Buendia or Coutinho or a creative player.
I just think there's going to be a lot of rotation in there.
Yeah.
I'll say Luiz.
I went Luiz as well.
It's James. It's difficult because there's so much rotation. And last season, I'm not sure how many assists every player got, but I think Luiz was up there.
I think Jacob Ramsey had the most in all competitions with 8. Is the research I saw.
It's difficult with assists because you kind of...
It bounces off you and then another person scores.
I thought if he's still taking corners...
Luiz is probably one of the... I say one of it. Luiz, he... don't have to say this. He means assists. Does that make sense? Ramsey could be in the right... This isn't to downplay any of our attacks at all, but if they're in the right position to lay the ball off, then you get an assist. But Luiz...
Just an assist that isn't really anything. It was just the pass.
Luiz is going to pick out... So I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. Just very quickly before we carry on, I want to highlight last year's predictions just to show how much of a nonsense this section is because we're going to say some silly things. So top scorer last season, I said Ings. You said Watkins.
Well, you were right until he was sold.
Of course, yeah. I was right for half a season.
But you were wrong.
Most assists, like I said, I went Luca Dean. You went Coutinho, who didn't really play.
Didn't get an assist.
Didn't get any assists.
Didn't get an assist.
Player of the year, I went Diego Carlos.
Did you when you said POTY, did you mean physio of the year?
Yeah, Diego Carlos, and then he was injured for the season about a week later.
Can't really do much for that.
You went Kamara, which I think was a decent shout.
Great shout.
Young player of the year, we both went with Archer, and I think we said there's basically nobody young, so it kind of has to be him.
I think Ramsey won it, but I think we ruled him out ourselves.
Yeah, we said he's too old for young player.
He's
of the
played
year.
enough, yeah. He's senior.
Villa finish, I said 9th. John, you said 10th.
Oh,
but
thank God.
You said...
I thought I'd 7th.
No, you said I think Villa will push for the top 7, but will fall short. So...
I mean, you were closer than me.
All of this under Steven Gerrard, by the way, which sounds mental, but it was in the end.
James was getting away with this.
yeah, you weren't there, were you?
My player of the year was Robin Olsen.
You can't... If I said Villa finished 7th, yeah, you're correct, but you're also quite a way off because it's
you got it the wrong way round. It was like we fell off, then pushed.
Exactly,
I've seen a few like podcasts and stuff have that. They put Villa quite high up last year, but...
I think we were probably a little bit concerned.
You can't claim it.
That.
2 things that we were right for out of a very large section. I actually said Leicester would be rubbish. And you guys were a bit like, they were just had a bad season last year. Tielemans is a great player, you said, which is
great.
Still here. But I thought, I just don't fancy him. I didn't say they'd be relegated, but I thought they'd have an average season at best, 14th or something.
I think I had Leicester 9th last year.
And you said that Newcastle would be very good. So congratulations for that as well. So a mixed bag, let's say, for last season.
It is so hard, but when you do your predictions this year, you're thinking...
That sounds great,
what's going to be the... Because there's always a surprise, or 3 or 4, and you're just like, well, what's going to happen? Are Luton going to finish 10th? Like, I don't know, maybe. But
well, they won't.
The way you do your...
I know what you mean.
The way you do your table, though, it's everyone's pretty much the same, but no one would have had Fulham in 10th last year.
Yeah, of course.
No one would have Leicester to go down. No one would have Arsenal to finish 2nd. And that's just 3 things off the top of my head. Like, Villa as well, so much change, so... What happens in a season's like it's so hard to.
But as of right now, as we're doing these predictions, we'll think, oh, that sounds alright. That's plausible, and then we could come back to this in 12 hours' time and go, wow, we're miles off.
Of course.
Player of the year, I'll get mine out of the way. I've gone Diaby just again because I think the impact of he'll be a new signing. In my scenario, he's top scorer, so for that reason, he's player of the year. Who have you gone for?
Now that you've said that, and I've said Watkins is going to score 20, he probably should be my player of the year, but I've said John McGinn as my player of the year.
Okay, nice.
I just think when Villa do well, he does well, and he's probably an 8 out of 10 most weeks.
And he could be an Aston Villa trophy lifting captain.
Yeah, if that contributes. But I just think at the end of the season, John McGinn can't not have like 80% of the games he's played as an 8 out of 10. Like, I just think he'll be up there for next year's player of the season if he's in the top 5. So I think it's probably a safe one, but at the same time, I think he's so important to how we play. And I say it again, like, people when they do their teams and they leave him out and they play a different player, like a new signing, what are you doing? John Wigan has to play. He has to.
I'm going to go Torres.
Okay.
I think, earlier it sounded like we were slacking him off a lot.
I was.
No, I mean, like,
I wasn't even slacking him off.
There's going to be people who say, anything negative is a bad thing to say, whereas, it's probably fair. But I think he'll change. He'll be a good addition to the way Villa play, and I think you'll see a lot. You'll see so much go through him. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the person on the ball the most. Yeah, in all honesty,
sure. Dropping into midfield and stuff.
Yeah, I think you'll see a lot of good stuff from him. It'll be hard for him to look bad on the ball. City's gonna, he's gonna cock up first game now. But I think on average, you'll be very comfortable with him, and you'll see a lot go through him. When Villa are setting up, you'll always notice it. Like Mings last season, you'll always notice him on the ball. I think we'll be impressed.
I think just like Moreno, I think it'll be like Emery wanted him. He wanted Torres. There's a reason. Like,
big brain move.
Yeah. You better touch wood that you don't give him the Diego Carlos curse that I did last year.
Yeah, well, that's not my fault. That's his ligament's fault.
Yeah. Young player of the year? Is there anyone obvious apart from Philogene?
You've gone for everyone else.
I'll just say that. Philogene now.
Yeah, I've gone for Philogene as well, just because he's the one at the moment who's breaking through. The other one, obviously, is Archer. If he plays minutes in the Conference League and is the Conference League top scorer or something, you'd go, maybe he's a shout for young player. Archer's an interesting one, and I'm not sure how much I want to talk about him at the moment, because I feel like he's probably not ready yet.
Ooh.
I don't want to... Well, you're going to have to talk about him now.
Just because, and that's only based really off because we've not seen him in pre-season, because he's not really been available. But I think we were talking at one stage about the drop-off between the main choice and the backup, and how like Martinez to Olsen is a massive drop-off because of he's nowhere near as good as Martinez. I think Archer coming on for 20 minutes here and there could do a job, and he looks lively, and the way he kind of runs and stuff, and the kind of that approach, and his finishing is obviously good. But I come at it from the side of things that if Watkins is unavailable, would I like to see Archer start in 90 minutes for, say, 6 games in a row? I don't think we'd do well. If he'd had a barnstorm in pre-season, I'd be going, he's ready.
That's like the point. Like, so I think it's a bit of a...
Will he have time to get up to speed and kick into gear? And I don't know.
I think when he's scoring for Middlesbrough, everyone's like, oh my God, he has to play next year.
Yeah.
And then he goes a bit quiet because he's not scoring for Middlesbrough, because he's not playing for Middlesbrough. And then it's like, is he ready? Like, I just got to give the guy a chance. And I think the Conference League is the perfect opportunity for him to do that. So that's why he's my player of the year, not just because he's different to Philogene, but I think he'll get minutes in the Conference League. Not every game, as James said. I think we'll play a strong team, but if he gets goals against Hibs or against random team in group stages and things like that, or if he scores in the quarter-final, which puts us 2-1 ahead, to very specific, I know, to go back into the home leg with a win. It's those are the key things for me that builds his confidence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those are big games, although they're against
lesser opposition. It's still a big moment.
Yes, there's still big moments for Villa. So if he can have those opportunities, I think that's perfect. That might do him more good than him playing against Fulham when it's a game which, might not mean as much. I don't know how to explain that. But
I think my point is probably more a pro Ollie Watkins point.
Yeah,
I think that's it. It's not
massively.
You would notice the drop off
and his opportunity.
But I think for Middlesbrough in England, Archer is coming into games hot, whereas at Villa he's very.
Yeah.
He's not getting a chance, and it's almost like that Keenan Davis syndrome of this guy can do something. Might not be score goals, he can do something. He can be an addition. But where is the chance for you to get that run to build? Because if you're an Ollie Watkins, you are going to get every game. And if you are bad in 6, you'll be good in 7.
Yeah. Where will Villa finish in the Premier League? This is quite a big one. So who wants to take it first? Go on, James.
7th.
7th again?
No, I think it might be 8th, actually.
Do you think?
It'd be thin margins. I think a top 10 finish on the cards. I just think in terms of the matches we have to play, there are maybe more pressing things than a top Premier League finish this season, especially if we're in the competitions that we want to do well in. I don't know if Villa can have both.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably fair to say there might be... I don't think a West Ham drop-off. No. I just think just a smidgen. Like, even if we finish with more points and it's 8th, and we have tried to win something rather than bailing out of the first round, you can still be happy with that. And I think that is progress, and that should be progress in everyone's eyes.
Yeah, I think we need European football for the season after as well. So to me, it would be if we are dropping off in the league but win the FA Cup or the Conference League, and that gets you into the Europa League, that is then a successful season. Almost whatever the drop off is to an extent. 14th or 15th is bad, but if it was 9th and the FA Cup, you'd go, okay, we're in Europe. That's all good. Part of me thinks you could get to, again, we'll get to this later, you could get to the Conference League, get a tough draw and lose in the quarter-final, say, but then kick on in the Premier League again and finish in the top 6 and get into Europe that way as well. So I think as long as we're in Europe for the season after, that would be my definition of success for this season.
I think three teams that Villa need to keep an eye on in terms of Liverpool, Chelsea and Tottenham had an off year yesterday. Had an off year last year. Liverpool just had an off year.
I think Liverpool will be much better than
they would be so much better.
I'm not sure Chelsea won't finish 12th, but I don't think they'll be finishing in the top 6.
Where they finished last year, 12th.
I think so.
Is it that low?
That's where we put Burnley.
44 points, Chelsea. That's 44 points, Chelsea.
They did struggle for a while, but they've got serious. I know you had Conte and Potter, but there was dysfunction, and there may still be dysfunction. But they've got 2 serious managers now.
Their midfield is. I mean, obviously things will change while the window's still open. But their midfield is empty. Like I wouldn't swap any of their midfielders for ours.
If they sign Caicedo, then you're looking at Enzo and Caicedo for like 38 league games.
Yeah.
They might even have another one that I've forgotten.
I think the bottom line is there's still dysfunction, but they'll be better.
Yeah, they'll be better than they were, but they've still got new signings who've got to hit the ground running. The manager's obviously got to do the same as well.
But even being like slightly better would still present Villa with some sort of problem. And I think to finish 8th or even 7th, if you finish the same way and both Chelsea and Tottenham did better and push you more, and Liverpool pushed more, then yeah.
But yeah, then you're also relying on Newcastle and Brighton to have good seasons as well. Maybe they drop off for various reasons.
It's true,
as well.
It could happen. I mean, we bigged up Newcastle, we've bigged up Brighton before. They are facing the same issues that Villa face. It's just the context is different.
Yeah, because you'd imagine there was a Newcastle guy I saw on Twitter or whatever, and he was saying that because Newcastle got to the Carabao Cup final, they played 10 cup games, whatever, last season. So if they went out in the first round this year but got to the Champions League round of 16, they'd still only play 10 games extra.
But
they're more intense, aren't they? And they wouldn't be able to. Like Villa could rest players in 4 Conference League games. Newcastle aren't going to be resting players in the Champions League.
Could you imagine?
Because it's a bigger toll, isn't it? So they could drop off for that reason, whereas Villa might be able to still rotate. John, where are we going to finish?
I see the season is probably quite boring, but I think context is really important because, as you said, if Villa get knocked out in the Conference League at the quarter-final, well, then you have about 2 months to try and get top 6. So, I don't know. I think it's difficult. If Villa are going to get to the final of the Conference League and go as far as that, there will be 4 at least games between the semi-final and the final and maybe a bit before where Villa just naturally, there's going to be a drop-off because everything will be going into that final. I don't think we'll be in the top 5 at that point, so we'll be looking at that and thinking, if we win the final, we get Europa League. So that's our ticket. It's a one game against the team who we potentially will be favourites to beat anyway. Depending on who comes down from the Europa League, I don't know who will. I put Villa about where James had Villa 7th, something like that. I know there's a lot of fans that are kind of pushing us in towards that Champions League, but I just think it might be a bit too soon because I think Liverpool will be stronger next year with Trent in midfield and different things like that. And they had a massive uplift last season. For us to get a point at Anfield last season was huge. Very difficult to do that. We probably could have won it, actually.
We're not saying like Villa, they had an easy ride last season because they didn't. They did it in really hard circumstances. But I think it's harder for Villa to achieve what they did.
Yeah, to go again
season
because the league is better.
Because the league on paper is better, and it may dissolve again. Villa may have some tough games. You've got the Gerrard factor isn't there anymore, but there is a multiple games plus a week factor to figure in,
and that is difficult.
Yeah, the added time as well.
It's like you said earlier, John. There will be something that happens where you go, I didn't expect that. What if Arsenal finish 7th?
Yeah, maybe.
But it seems unlikely, obviously, because I've just finished 2nd and made some good signings. But something up in that top 7 could be vastly different.
I think we'll be in the conversation of towards that top 7. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with Newcastle. I think part of me thinks, they could probably finish top 4 again. Another part is like they could finish 8th.
Yeah.
I think Brighton will have I think they'll have a bit of a drop off just because they are in Europe, and I don't think I know they replace players very well, but if they lose Caicedo, that'll be a massive loss. They lost McAllister and replaced him with
Dahoud,
who again is a good player, but I'm just not sure. And Cisse I think's class, but so I think they'll be in and around where they were last year, but we finished a point behind them, having again given them a 13-game start. So I think we can finish above Brighton. I just look at the last. I think it's all down to the final months of the season.
We'll be in it.
If we finish 7th, 8th, that means we're going to be a few points out of 6th and 5th, in my opinion, because I think it'll be tight.
Yeah.
So I'm predicting up until the final 2 months of the season, and then whatever happens from there happens.
Yeah, because if you finish 8th outside of Europe, but you're 4 points away and win the Conference League, we'd all go, great season, because that's got us into where 6th would anyway.
Yeah.
But again, see how the Conference League affects us. If we're in the top 4 in March and the Europa Conference League quarter final, I guess it probably would be around that stage. Do you then start to think, do we push for the Champions League and really throw the Conference League, or do we try and do both?
You know what, I'm doing both. We've been burnt by that before. I'd rather go out on your shield than go.
And if you've gone that far, that proves that you can deal with it as well, I think.
That's
before, so. And
we'll do the Premier League top 7 in the sec. That probably gives more context for where Villa we've placed Villa as well. I've put 5th. Because I keep saying that we're gonna be up and around.
It'd be
the
slim margins,
places.
so it won't. Like between, we'll probably be 3 points off 4th,
exactly
but there's goal difference.
Exactly that. If we finish 7th on 63 points, but the top 4 is 70, can Villa not make up those 7 points over the course of the season?
You'd have looked at I think at the end of the season, you'll be looking back at one game and you'll be like,
yeah, of course.
That could have been you always do, but I think it's going to be that close.
If 5th gets, we were talking about the coefficients and stuff for the league. I think it's the league's coefficient rather than and the Premier League is obviously one of, if not the best. The 5th place, touch wood again, should get you a Champions League spot in the new format for the year after. It might only be a qualifying round or whatever it is, but it's still the Champions League. It's the same what we've got for the Conference League, I guess. I think Villa could finish 5th.
I think up until maybe February or something. I think we'll be in touching distance with those places. It's just I think there might be a few strong teams like Chelsea will have nothing to play for. Whether they'll improve, I don't know. I don't think Tottenham will be brilliant, but I think Liverpool improve. Newcastle is still there. Let's just see how it goes. I don't want to kind of say Villa top 4, and I fully believe it because I don't. I think what James said was about right, and we'll see what happens in the final weeks and months of the season. I think that's the key.
Let's do the domestic cup competitions then, FA Cup and League Cup. Do you want to do those in one go, James?
Go on then. So FA Cup, I think it's semi-final.
Okay.
And I think we're the victims of probably a tough draw.
A Wembley trip?
Yeah, we get a Wembley trip, but I think we'll get the eventual winner, and it'll probably be City.
A nice specific prediction, fair play for that. I didn't go that far. I put quarter-final.
I've put a great deal of thought into this, which is why I think we'll win.
It's convincing me to agree. I think that will happen.
We will play the League Cup, and we will beat Man United
in the final.
In the League Cup final, and we will banish Neiman's.
Okay,
past.
I'll write that.
And the Conference League.
Go on then, get to the Conference League as well.
No. I'll wait until we do the Conference League. I don't want to go first for that.
Domestic cups, John?
I would love to say final both because we could get to the final, but I just don't think it'll happen.
We'll get a crap draw.
The draw is a massive thing, isn't it, for those?
That's it.
You literally just get
really hard to predict. I was about to say semi-final of the League Cup, but I think if we get to the semi-final, I think we'd go through to the final because it's 2 legs, one at Villa Park.
Yeah.
I say quarter-final for the League Cup, difficult draw, and then FA Cup, one of the lower rounds because we have no luck in the FA Cup for some reason. Just don't see it.
I've put FA Cup quarter-final and League Cup round of 16, but I'm going to swap those just because I think, no particular reason really. I just think there'll be one of the trophies will go out earlier than we would like to, just because of the draw. We could get Man City in the first knockout round and go, okay, there we go.
Yeah, which would be annoying, but we have the cups to go for as well. You want to win everything you can possibly, but
if Villa get a decent draw and get to the final, there's absolutely no danger in the world. I'll be sitting there going, we can beat anyone on our day, but the draw is such a massive factor.
And I think the way that the latter rounds of those competitions, they come obviously when the Conference League starts to kick on. Premier League gets into your busier months, so it'll be difficult for us to go far in both of those. Could go far in one.
The League Cup's probably the easy one to go further in because it's played earlier, isn't it?
We go in the later round as well. We have one late round fewer.
And as we say, that 2019 to 20, you kind of just fly under the radar and all of a sudden you're in the League Cup.
We just appeared in it.
I was trying to get the back post. Final.
Exactly. I feel like that kind of thing could happen again, but again, it's all dependent on that draw. Conference League then. What are we saying?
It's so hard to predict because you know the teams that are going to be there in the FA Cup. The Conference League is a massive field of teams who haven't determined their future yet. I honestly think it's going to be tragedy in the Conference League, and it's going to be because of the draw. Really? Again, I think we'll go up against a big. How does it like seeded? Because if it's seeded, we're going all the way.
There'll be a point where somebody from the Europa League drops down as well, and we'll play kind of a playoff round against third place in the group or something like that. Second place in the group.
So if you finish second in your group, you'll be playing
of course.
another playoff round to get into the knockouts.
Okay, that could be tricky.
So I think Villa could easily get
first. Really.
You could get through the groups while winning the group, beat somebody in the first knockout round, and then you could potentially be playing a Europa League side in the quarters, and then go out.
I haven't seen the full Europa League. Every team in Europa League, but I think if you finish third in your group in Europa League, I don't think you'll be particularly good.
No, yeah.
I mean, if you're
about Conference League level,
if you're seeding, Villa's seeding is like barely on, isn't it? So I think I imagine if that factors in and teams drop out of the Europa League, we could get a really nasty draw later on.
Yeah.
But then again, I think West Ham have been in European competition, so they might have a higher seed. I don't know. I'm trying to base it too much on last year.
West Ham could fall out the Europa League and play Conference again.
If we get there.
Liverpool drop out the Europa League.
Can you imagine West Ham Villa final Conference League?
Oh, that'd be
good.
Is
it in Athens?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That'd be tasty.
And they get to wear the Claret and Blue.
Oh. Yeah, I never thought about that. I want to be wearing Claret and Blue if we're going to win trophies.
Yeah, I believe we can go far. I just think the mechanism of how it all works might not shake in Villa's favour, and I think it'll come to some tough.
In which case,
we'll have a fight.
Let's say we dropped out in the quarter-final. Would you then predict we'd do better than 8th in the Premier League?
When's the quarter-final?
I don't know. I knew you were going to ask me that.
It'll be
March, maybe.
It's not.
I'll be right.
I think March might be too late to really rally. You'd have to put the seeds a bit earlier, and I think going out is a blow.
Yeah,
it is. Even if we played the second string and gave up, it's a blow.
Teams like, I mean, there's not a lot of them to be honest, but like Frankfurt worry me. They look a bit horrible. Right?
If you get again with no knowledge of how the draw will work past the group stage, if you get Fiorentina in the semi-final,
those games will be tricky.
They'll be hard.
Who's the bookies' favourite? Villa in the Premier League, but they're just.
Not back us, but imagine Fiorentina get a penalty last minute.
Like 2 legs.
Two legs, yeah.
Away goals.
Not sure.
Cut out.
I hope not, man.
I feel like we could beat anyone over 2 legs.
I don't think there's away goals.
I back us. I just think it's a tough ask for Villa to go.
Winning trophies is though, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And Emery's won trophies before, so
yeah. I mean, all arguments make sense. That's
good
every point is brilliant.
We need an answer whenever Villa get knocked out. Then.
So you reckon we'll be possibly knocked out in an earlier round than we'd like to, just because of the way the draw goes?
That's any round, isn't it? Because we want to get to the
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, I suppose. It's like quarter-final.
Semi-final, mate. Yeah, semi-final. No, quarter-final. Because semi-final. If we get through to the semi-final, it's that thing where no one's going to beat us.
Exactly. Yeah.
Quarter-final is a trickier ask, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because I reckon you get a Europa League team, and they're.
It's a strong point though, because Villa will have to play one of those games at home. You just think
we'll beat anyone at Villa Park.
And if we do it by 2 goals, should we say, I don't think we're going to lose by 3 goals away from home under Emery.
That's true.
Exactly.
Maybe I'm trying to
just tell me that we're winning the Conference League.
It's just luck. You know what? It's actually luck.
There's a bit of that,
if we're unlucky, we won't win it.
There's a bit of that.
I ever still win it, but that's
so do I.
It's not based off a lot of logic. It's just
vibes.
But then I would also say whatever Premier League team qualifies for the Conference League, they will be a favourite.
Exactly. So, whoever finished 7th this year should be getting to the final.
I just don't like all of the confidence from the outside saying, they've got Emery, they'll easily win it. It's like, it ain't going to be that easy.
If the draw is okay and Villa don't get mad injuries and nothing silly happens, then
the draw will never be okay in the latter rounds, though. It's always going to be sticky.
If we ever have to question...
West Ham's weren't great, as you've said.
If we ever have to question league position or Conference League, the game's already over. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's like we said at the start, it's great to be even having these conversations about should we throw the semi-final so we can finish in the top 4? Like, how mad is that we've come this far?
How will we feel though if Villa don't win the Conference League? Because
I'll be gutted if we don't win it, because I think we should be winning it.
I know we can.
Yeah.
A lot of fans will gain respect for a trophy they probably slagged off.
Yeah, of course.
You look at me. No, you got to put words on that.
It's just, you know, the whole thing of I don't want to qualify for that because it's pointless. And
Yeah,
it's
that
like,
was.
if we get
strange.
there and we get beaten in the quarterfinal, you're going to feel in agony.
Yeah, I want to be winning
My point on that is that,
all games.
as you said, I want to win that to get into the Europa League.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
need Europe after the. If we,
It's a ladder, isn't it?
Yeah, if we don't have Europe next year, then all of a sudden you're
If
thinking,
we're
we can't
mid-table
attract
when the
some players.
quarterfinals coming round in the Premier League, I'll be going, we have to win this competition now because the gap to get into the Europa League in the league might be a step too far, so we have to win this trophy now.
You got to go all out to win that thing anyway. Let's just see where we are in the league.
Yeah. Okay, so there's Villa's predictions then. Let's run through the Premier League top 7 and the bottom 3 very quickly. John, you go first. Who's going to win the league? We'll get through this pretty quick to wrap up.
My top 7 is Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United. Then I have Newcastle 5, 6, Chelsea, Villa 7.
Okay, so I've got exactly the same 7 sides, exactly the same
Different
top 4. Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United, Villa 5th, because I've said it earlier, so I have to stick with it. Newcastle 6th, Chelsea 7th.
Yep.
Mine was identical to John's.
Really?
No,
Okay.
yeah, no word of a lie.
Tottenham are going to finish 3rd now.
Where's Spurs then in ours?
They could be. I think Chelsea and Spurs could
Kane
be
is the
quite
massive thing for them still.
interchangeable.
If Kane's gone.
Looks like he's staying now.
If Kane goes, they'll finish 10th.
Yeah.
I've Tottenham 8, Brighton 9.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a shout.
I can definitely. Yeah, I think we'll finish above Newcastle and Brighton based off last year's sides, but Liverpool will be much better. And obviously, I've got Chelsea up in the top 7.
Brentford 10th.
Yeah, Brentford. Yeah, maybe. Bottom 3.
Luton.
I think we're probably all going to go for the same here.
Yeah.
Luton to go.
I have
Yeah,
Sheffield,
it's a shame.
Sheffield bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Sheffield will blow out.
Sheffield
surely.
United.
Yeah, sorry, Sheffield United. Sold the best 2 players. They've
Yeah.
got problems behind the scenes.
Not ready
It's
at all.
Paul Heckingbottom, the guy.
Equally, the teams like these do come up and then they do okay and finish 15th. Like, it's weird.
Yeah.
Something tells me those 2 won't finish in the bottom 2, but
Burnley is our one of they'll come up and be
I think
good.
so,
The
yeah.
other 2 straight gone for me.
I think so. I just never
Like-
kind of plays out like that. But
20 points, 25 points if they look at.
Sheffield come up the one year, didn't they? And they didn't look particularly great. They finished
came
8th.
up and yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
Yeah.
COVID stuff impacted that, but
See, the third team is harder because I just want to say Watford, but Watford, you know, they're not even there. It's just the answer.
It was between 2 for me, but again, something rogue could happen like nobody would have predicted. Leicester last year,
Yeah.
and probably Southampton as well to go
Yeah,
down.
Southampton's
I
massive.
Southampton
Did you have to go down? Okay,
Not
fair enough.
bottom.
But a lot of people probably wouldn't
Leeds,
have said
Leicester,
that.
and Southampton.
Three big shouts to go
That's
down, I guess.
Yeah, that's a clearance, isn't it?
Which people say like the league's improved, which it has at the top end, but Sheffield United, Burnley and Luton aren't as good a sides as Leicester, Southampton and Leeds should have been. They were bad, but they should have been better than they did, especially Leicester.
I'd want to say Fulham. They were great at the start. They fell off badly. But I think Bournemouth.
Okay.
I really think Bournemouth. I just don't think they've
People are
got...
kind of hyping up Bournemouth, aren't they, for the manager that
that
they've
could
got?
go, it could go one or 2 ways. He's a
Yeah.
good manager, Areola. It's from the same neck of the woods as Emery.
I think, yeah, they've got it. It's just...
They could finish 10th or
They had
20th.
they had some steel, like last season, that some resolve. And I'm not saying a non-English manager comes in there and loses the grit. It's like fighting spirit. But
I know what you're saying. That
they had something about them that was just a bit... And I mean, the new manager can give it them. But
they're going to change, but as long as if they lose that, what you're saying, then that's a problem.
They had that thing where we're just not going down, lads. You know.
And they
And
had
it's
they
as
had
simple as
sort
that.
of mentality of everyone's put us down already. Yeah. Like Luton will have next season, so
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think I am just struggling to find another side, really. So that's why I said.
You take Bournemouth. I was tempted for Fulham, but I've gone Wolves. Which I think is kind of funny as well because it's a Villa Wolves thing. They look like they're an easy one to go. They're in trouble. The manager could leave. The players they've sold. It's like there's no one left.
It's very
But
Leicester.
then they could finish 10th.
finish 12th and just be solid.
God, they're actually all right in the end. But
Yeah, I had Wolves as well.
Wolves, Fulham, Bournemouth's a good shout. Anything for Nottingham Forest? Think they'll be in trouble?
Don't think so.
No,
I like
I
Gibbs
don't
White
think they'll
too
go
much.
down, but I think they'll be around the bottom
Yeah,
6
in the
as
mix.
Yeah, solid. You know.
Yeah, I had Wolves as well. Lopetegui won't be there for a start. The 11 they have isn't bad, but anything beneath that is.
Any thoughts
really
on
poor.
Everton?
I had Everton to go last year,
They'll be down
I
around
haven't
there.
staying up by one place this season as well. I just think they'll forever be circling the drain.
Yeah,
But I don't know when they're going to get up.
They do drop at some point. Like, I don't think it'll be this year, just because
I think if
Sheffield and Luton take 2, and then you're asking them to go as one of the other 3.
the teams who have come up, I think that's the Luton and Sheffield seem nailed on to go down.
Yeah,
but
you've then got one spot for Wolves, Bournemouth, Forest, Everton, Fulham.
But I thought last year Fulham and Bournemouth were bankers to go, and that's why I had Everton, Southampton.
Before we do our big prediction, which we're going to write down and seal an envelope, but they're going to be Villa predictions, by the way. Obviously, it's the Villa podcast.
Haaland top scorer.
But before we get into those, have you got like a rogue shout for like the rest of the league? Just for something a bit different?
You asked me earlier. I love these.
I'll give you time to think. I don't know whether this is a rogue shout, to be honest, but because Palace are always 12th or 11th or around that thing, I'm not saying Palace will go down, but I think they'll be in trouble all the way through the season.
Possibly.
I think they'll be like in the bottom 3 at several points, but survive near the end.
Haven't they? Eze's top.
I don't know whether that's a wild shout, really, because
no one's mentioning Palace.
That's what I mean. They just think everyone just goes, well, they'll be around mid-table, because they always are, but at some point that just flips and they're all of a sudden in danger. I don't think they'll go because I've gone for the other 3, but
I think
Palace will be like,
probably helps them a lot though.
Yeah, but at some point again, I think that becomes a hindrance.
I don't have enough time to think of my rogue shout.
Yeah. Anything, James? Anything stand out?
I want to say something so stupid.
Say something stupid.
Okay, Luton go down, but they don't lose at home.
Oh, okay. I like that.
I mean, it's not. I'm not saying they win at home, by the way.
Unbeaten at home.
So they'll be unbeaten at home, but be relegated. Is that even possible?
If you get 18 points and then 19 points.
Maybe it's that next. I'm not going to play at home because I'm going to get the stadium fixed.
John, you've had some thinking time. Have you got anything?
It's not that crazy, to be fair, thinking about it. The Saudi League, their transfer window doesn't shut for another month, I don't think, until the Premier League, and then it. So I don't know, maybe something in there of Saudi League signing a few top players from top clubs. I don't know. It's a horrendous prediction and it's very boring.
Yeah, they've already done.
Maybe something in that. I don't know.
So like a big player goes to Saudi.
Potentially derails maybe someone's season. I don't know. It's quite difficult.
Like Salah goes to Saudi and Liverpool for something.
I'll be the first one to say no, I don't think that would happen.
No. So we're going to move on to the last segment, and this is not going to be great podcasting, but it will hopefully be good in 8 months' time. I've got you each a little piece of paper.
It's a pencil, by the way, because we don't have a pen.
And it's a pencil from about 2003 from James's backpack. We've only got one pencil between us, so whoever's got these first can go. I've had an envelope here ready to go called the BIG Predictions, which you probably can't see on camera. Dan, John and James, August 2023. I'm going to write these down, keep them to yourselves, seal them in an envelope and come back to it at the end of the season. So these are things that, again, a big shout, Aston Villa related, something that you may be not willing to commit to saying today and have been scrutinised by YouTube comments, but if it did happen, you can come back to it in May and say, I was right because I said this.
They used to do this on Sky Sports for the transfers, didn't they? They
Yeah.
put in like a rogue transfer and then...
So James, you've written yours. Can you, without saying what it is, obviously, because that's the thing, any hints on what it's about, or is it a player thing? Is it a manager thing?
It's a goals thing.
A goals thing. Okay. Obviously, I'll be cutting this out for the podcast version. Okay. Put it in the envelope. Now, these are in pencil because that's all we could get, but I won't be changing them. I won't be getting the rubber out.
Will be sealed.
I won't be getting the rubber out when I get home. I will be putting that in the envelope when I've got two hands in a bit. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me for the big season preview. It's been an absolute pleasure. We've talked through some interesting bits and pieces, and I'm always intrigued by the prediction section because I want people to get involved at home with their shouts as well. I'll put a template in the comment section so people can fill in their top scorer for the finish, etc. But I'm keen to come back to this in a few months' time.
We want people to comment about their rogue predictions as well.
Yeah, give us your rogue predictions.
The worst ones. Want some horrific.
Give us your thoughts on Emery, how we'll rotate in the cups, how we'll get on in the Conference League, whether we'll win anything this year. We're keen to hear from you as always. John, thanks very much for joining me. Thanks to our special guest, James Rushton, for returning to the podcast. Thank you very much for watching or listening to this show. The season starts in a matter of days and we're all very excited and we hope you are too. Thank you for watching this show and we'll see you again very soon.